The stroller was stuck on the third step, wheels spinning uselessly in the air, when Oliver Grady spotted the woman struggling at the base of the century-old limestone staircase. He didn't hesitate, despite the 40-pound toolbox weighing down his right arm and the knowledge that he was already 15 minutes late to pick up his daughter from after-school care. "Let me help you with that," he called out, jogging the last few yards to the imposing staircase that led up to the Columbus Public Library. The woman looked up, relief washing over her features that were partially hidden beneath oversized sunglasses and a wide-brimmed hat. "Thank you," she said, stepping back as Oliver set down his toolbox. "These stairs are impossible with this stroller." Oliver nodded as he assessed the situation. The stroller was one of those luxury models with all the bells and whistles, but even the most expensive baby gear couldn't navigate these steep historic steps. "I've been there," he said with a sympathetic smile, glancing at the sleeping toddler inside. The child couldn't have been much older than 2, with delicate features and a riot of dark curls. "My daughter Lily had the same problem with her stroller when she was this age. These old buildings weren't exactly designed with parents in mind." Without further discussion, Oliver carefully lifted the stroller, child and all, and began carrying it up the remaining 23 steps. The woman followed beside him, her hand hovering protectively near her child. "I'm Wendy, by the way," she said. "Wendy Jensen, and this is Ellie." "Oliver Grady," he replied, concentrating on not jostling the sleeping child. Plumber by day, single dad by night. He couldn't see Wendy's expression behind her sunglasses, but her voice softened. "That can't be easy." Oliver shrugged as best he could while carrying the stroller. "You do what you have to do. Lily's worth every minute of it." When they reached the top landing, Oliver carefully set the stroller down. The little girl inside stirred but didn't wake. "Thank you so much," Wendy said, taking off her sunglasses for the first time. Her eyes were a deep, striking blue that caught Oliver by surprise. "No problem, I should probably." He glanced at his watch and winced. "I really need to run. The after-school program charges by the minute if you're late." "Of course," Wendy said quickly. "I won't keep you." "Thanks again for your help." Oliver nodded, retrieved his toolbox, and hurried back down the steps, completely unaware that Wendy Jensen was watching him go with unexpected interest. As the owner of Jensen Tech Innovations, a company valued at just over $3 billion, Wendy wasn't used to strangers offering help without recognizing her or wanting something in return. There had been something genuine in the way the plumber had jumped in to help, something that had nothing to do with who she was or what she had. And for the first time in a long while, Wendy found herself thinking about a man long after he'd disappeared from view. Oliver was breathless by the time he reached his faded blue pickup truck. The $12 late fee he'd have to pay at Lily's after-school program would mean peanut butter sandwiches instead of the promised pizza night, but he couldn't have left that woman struggling on the stairs. His own mother had raised him alone, and he remembered how strangers' small kindnesses had sometimes made all the difference in their difficult days. He made it to Bright Futures Academy with only 20 minutes to spare before closing, which meant a $4 late fee instead of $12. Small victories, he thought as he parked. "Daddy." 6-year-old Lily came running as soon as he entered, her dark braids bouncing and her gap-toothed smile on full display. "I made a castle. Come see before they clean up." Oliver let himself be pulled toward the art table, where a magnificent structure of cardboard, paper tubes, and glitter stood. "That's amazing," Lily pawed. "Is that where you're going to live when you become a princess?" Lily giggled. "No, Daddy, it's where we'll live when I become a princess. There's a special room for your tools and everything." "Well, that's a relief," he said, ruffling her hair. "Let me talk to Miss Peterson, and then we'll head home, okay?" After paying the late fee and apologizing to the understanding but firm teacher, Oliver helped Lily gather her things. "Pizza night is going to be sandwich night," he explained gently as they walked to the truck. "Daddy had to help someone today, and it made me a little late." Lily's face fell only momentarily before brightening again. "Can we make the sandwiches look like pizza, with round bread and stuff on top?" Oliver's heart swelled. "That's a brilliant idea. Who needs delivery when we can make sandwich pizzas, right?" "Right," Lily agreed enthusiastically. Who did you help, Daddy? A lady with a baby in a stroller. She couldn't get up the big library steps. That was nice of you, Lily said with the simple approval of a child who'd been raised to believe in kindness. Was she pretty? Oliver laughed as he buckled Lily into her booster seat. I don't really know. She was wearing big sunglasses, but she seemed nice. Maybe she's a princess in disguise, Lily suggested seriously. And now you'll get a reward. The only reward I need is right here, Oliver said, poking her gently in the tummy and making her giggle. But later that night, after Lily had gone to bed and Oliver was reviewing his budget at the kitchen table, he found himself remembering the woman's striking blue eyes and the way she'd smiled when she'd thanked him. There had been something familiar about her, though he couldn't place it. Probably just his imagination after 3 years of being a single dad following Maria's death. His social life consisted of parent-teacher conferences and the occasional beer with fellow tradesmen. Get it together, Grady, he muttered to himself as he calculated how to stretch his latest paycheck to cover the upcoming property tax bill. Beautiful mystery women with designer strollers weren't exactly in his league anyway. The next morning was a rush of lunch packing, hair braiding, and frantic searching for Lily's favorite socks. Oliver dropped his daughter off at school with minutes to spare, before heading to his first job of the day fixing a persistent leak in the men's restroom at the Columbus Public Library. He was halfway up those same limestone steps, toolbox in hand, when he heard someone call his name. Oliver Grady. He turned to see the woman from yesterday, Wendy, standing at the bottom of the stairs. Today her daughter was strapped to her chest in a baby carrier, and there was no stroller in sight. I thought that was you, Wendy said, climbing the steps to meet him. Without the sunglasses and hat, he could see her properly now wavy auburn hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, those striking blue eyes, and a warm smile that made something flutter in his chest. Hey there, he said, surprised. No stroller battle today. Wendy laughed, the sound bright in the morning air. I learned my lesson. The carrier is much more practical for library trips. Are you here for toddler story time too? Oliver held up his toolbox. Afraid not. Leaky toilet duty, glamorous I know. At least you're saving the day for someone, she said, her eyes twinkling. Then she hesitated. Listen, I wanted to thank you again for yesterday. I was wondering if I could buy you a coffee sometime, as a proper thank you. Oliver blinked in surprise. Oh, that's really not necessary. I was happy to help. I insist, Wendy said. Besides, I'm new in town and don't know many people yet. It would be nice to have a friendly face to talk to. Something about her earnestness made Oliver nod before he could overthink it. Sure, why not? I've got a break around 10 if the library cafe works for you. Perfect, Wendy replied, bouncing slightly as little Ellie began to fuss. We'll see you then. As Oliver continued up the stairs, he couldn't help wondering what a woman like Wendy would really want with a conversation with him. But the thought of adult conversation that didn't revolve around plumbing problems was too tempting to pass up. At precisely 10 o'clock, Oliver washed his hands thoroughly in the maintenance room sink and made his way to the library's small cafe. Wendy was already there, sitting at a corner table with Ellie contentedly playing with wooden blocks in her lap. You made it, she said, looking genuinely pleased as he approached. Leaks fixed ahead of schedule, he replied, settling into the chair across from her. The wonders of modern plumbing technology. A barista appeared at their table, and Wendy ordered a simple black coffee for Oliver after he declined anything fancier and an herbal tea for herself. So, she said once their drinks arrived, tell me about yourself, Oliver Grady. He shrugged, suddenly self-conscious. Not much to tell. I'm a plumber with my own small business. Single dad to my 6-year-old Lily. Been in Columbus all my life. And Lily's mother? Wendy asked gently. Car accident 3 years ago, he said, the familiar pang in his chest duller now but still present. Maria was driving home from work during a snowstorm. Wendy's face softened with genuine sympathy. I'm so sorry, that must have been incredibly difficult. It was, he admitted. Still is sometimes, but Lily keeps me going. He took a sip of his coffee, eager to shift the focus. What about you? You mentioned you're new to Columbus. A shadow crossed Wendy's face. Yes, we moved here 2 months ago. Fresh start for Ellie and me. Something in her tone made Oliver hesitate to ask about Ellie's father, so he changed direction. What brought you to Columbus specifically? Business interests, she said vaguely, and I wanted somewhere with good schools and parks for Ellie. She smiled down at her daughter, who was now attempting to stack 3 blocks with intense concentration. I grew up with all the advantages but not a lot of actual parenting. I want something different for her. Their conversation flowed easily after that, touching on favorite local parks, the challenges of parenting alone, and their shared love of classic science fiction movies. Oliver was surprised to find the time passing quickly and was almost disappointed when his phone alarm reminded him that his next job was in 30 minutes. I should get going, he said reluctantly. This was nice though. Thanks for the coffee. Maybe we could do it again sometime. Wendy suggested. Ellie and I are still exploring local playgrounds. Perhaps Lily would like to join us this weekend. Oliver hesitated only briefly. She'd love that. She's been asking for more playdates, though Ellie might be a bit young for her usual games. Ellie's a great observer, Wendy assured him, and I promise I'm fun too. Oliver found himself smiling at her playful tone. I'll take your word for it. Saturday afternoon at Goodale Park. It's a date, Wendy said, then quickly added, a playdate, I mean. As Oliver left the library, he couldn't help but feel a lightness in his step that had been missing for a long time. It was just coffee and a playdate, he reminded himself. Nothing more. But the prospect of seeing Wendy again brought a warmth he hadn't expected. What he couldn't know was that, as Wendy watched him leave, she was having a silent argument with herself about the wisdom of pursuing a friendship, or possibly more with a man who had no idea who she really was. Saturday dawned bright and clear, perfect weather for a park playdate. Oliver dressed with slightly more care than usual, swapping his standard worn t-shirt for a newer button-down that Maria's sister had given him last Christmas. Lily, sensing something important about the outing, insisted on wearing her fancy play clothes leggings without holes and a sparkly unicorn t-shirt. Is the princess lady going to be there? Lily asked as they drove to Goodale Park. Her name is Wendy, and yes, she'll be there with her little girl Ellie, Oliver explained. But I don't think she's an actual princess, Lily pad. You never know, Lily replied with the unshakable certainty of a first grader. She could be hiding it, Oliver chuckled. Well, even if she is, let's just treat her like a regular mom, okay? That's what princesses want when they're in disguise. Okay, Daddy, Lily agreed solemnly. They spotted Wendy near the playground, sitting on a checkered picnic blanket with a small cooler beside her. Ellie was attempting to toddle after a butterfly, squealing with delight each time it fluttered just out of reach. Hi, Wendy called, waving them over. Today she wore simple jeans and a light sweater, her hair loose around her shoulders. Despite the casual outfit, there was something effortlessly elegant about her that made Oliver suddenly conscious of the small oil stain he hadn't been able to remove from his jeans. We brought bubbles, Lily announced, holding up a plastic bottle proudly as they approached. Perfect. Wendy exclaimed, Ellie loves bubbles, don't you, sweetheart? She called to her daughter, who immediately abandoned the butterfly chase and came toddling back, her chubby legs working overtime. Ba-ba, Ellie proclaimed, reaching for the bottle in Lily's hand. I'll show you how, Lily said with all the authority of her 6 years. You have to be gentle or they pop too soon. Oliver watched with relief as Lily patiently demonstrated bubble blowing to the enraptured toddler, adjusting her usual boisterous play style to accommodate the younger child. You have a wonderful daughter, Wendy said, echoing his thoughts. So kind and patient. She gets that from her mom, Oliver replied with a bittersweet smile. Maria was a kindergarten teacher, had a natural way with kids. I think she gets it from both parents, Wendy countered gently. She patted the blanket beside her. Sit. I brought snacks that should please both age groups: apple slices, cheese sticks, and homemade cookies. Oliver settled onto the blanket, accepting the apple slice she offered. Homemade, huh? I'm impressed. I can barely manage boxed mac and cheese some nights. Baking relaxes me, Wendy said with a shrug, especially when work gets stressful. What do you do? Oliver asked, realizing he still knew very little about her professionally, a slight hesitation. I'm in tech, software development mostly. That explains how you can afford to spend weekday mornings at the library, Oliver said lightly. Remote work has its perks. It does, Wendy agreed. Though I still have too many video meetings. What about you? Do you enjoy plumbing? I do actually, Oliver said, surprising himself with his candor. I like solving problems. Every job is a puzzle, and there's something satisfying about fixing things that other people can't. Plus, I set my own hours, which helps with Lily. They chatted easily as they watched their daughters play, and Oliver found himself relaxing completely in Wendy's company. There was no pretense with her, no feeling that she was judging his worn shoes or the fact that he couldn't afford the latest smartphone. When he told her funny stories about bizarre plumbing emergencies, she laughed genuinely, her eyes crinkling at the corners. As the afternoon progressed, Ellie began to tire, her toddler energy finally depleted. She climbed into Wendy's lap and promptly fell asleep against her chest. I should probably get her home for a proper nap, Wendy said regretfully, but this was really lovely. It was, Oliver agreed, calling Lily over to help pack up. We should do it again sometime. How about dinner next Friday? Wendy suggested. I make a mean lasagna, and I bet Lily and Ellie would enjoy a movie night. Oliver hesitated, not wanting to impose. That's very kind, but please, Wendy interrupted. I have a huge dining room that never gets used. It would be nice to fill it with conversation for once. Okay then, he agreed, unable to resist the genuine warmth in her invitation. Friday it is. As they exchanged phone numbers and Wendy gave him her address, Oliver couldn't help but notice the careful way she spelled out the street name Ravine Ridge Road, one of the most exclusive neighborhoods in Columbus. He raised an eyebrow but didn't comment. Maybe she was house-sitting, or perhaps software developers made more than he realized. Either way, he was looking forward to Friday more than he cared to admit. The Ravine Ridge address proved to be even more impressive than Oliver had anticipated. As he drove his pickup truck through the neighborhood of sprawling estates, each set back from the street behind manicured landscaping, he felt increasingly out of place. Lily, however, was enchanted. "Daddy, these are real princess houses," she exclaimed, her nose pressed against the window. "I told you she might be a princess." "They're certainly fancy," Oliver agreed, checking the navigation one more time to confirm he had the right address. When they pulled up to number 827, a modern glass and stone mansion set on what looked like at least 2 acres of pristine grounds, Oliver almost turned around. There had to be some mistake. But the security gate swung open as they approached, and Wendy herself appeared at the front door, waving enthusiastically. "You found us," she called as they parked in the circular driveway. "I was worried the GPS might send you to the back entrance." Oliver stepped out of the truck, trying to mask his shock. "Nice place," he managed, helping Lily with her seatbelt. "It's too big, honestly," Wendy said with a self-deprecating smile, "but it has good security, which is important to me." As she led them inside, Oliver struggled to reconcile the down-to-earth woman he'd been getting to know with the obvious wealth surrounding them. The foyer alone was bigger than his living room, with soaring ceilings and a modern chandelier that probably cost more than his annual income. "Ellie's in the playroom," Wendy explained, guiding them through the house. "I thought the girls could play while I finish dinner and you can relax for a bit. There's beer in the fridge if you'd like one. This is amazing." Lily gasped as they entered what could only be described as a child's paradise, a room filled with every toy imaginable, from a princess castle big enough to sit into a miniature kitchen with working light and sound effects. Ellie, spotting Lily, came running with a doll to show her. "Make yourself at home," Wendy told Oliver. "The kitchen's through there. I just need to check on the lasagna." Oliver followed her, still feeling like he'd stepped into an alternate reality. The kitchen was straight out of a design magazine, with gleaming appliances and a marble island large enough to park his truck on. "Can I help with anything?" he offered, accepting the craft beer she handed him from a built-in refrigerator drawer. "You can keep me company," she said, opening the oven to reveal a bubbling lasagna that smelled divine. "I don't get many adult visitors." "I find that hard to believe," Oliver said, leaning against the counter. Given all this, he gestured vaguely at their surroundings. Wendy's smile faltered slightly. The house tends to attract the wrong kind of interest, unfortunately. What does that mean? She sighed, setting the lasagna on a cooling rack. It means most people who want to be my friend are actually interested in my bank account, not me. I'm not following, Oliver admitted, though a suspicion was beginning to form. Wendy looked at him directly. I should have been honest from the start. I'm not just in tech. I founded Jensen Tech Innovations. You might have heard of our security software. Oliver stared at her. Even he, tech-challenged as he was, recognized the name of one of the country's most successful cybersecurity companies. You're that Jensen, she nodded, a hint of apprehension in her eyes. I'm sorry I wasn't upfront about it, it's just refreshing to meet someone who wanted to help me up some stairs because I needed help, not because of who I am or what I have. Oliver took a long sip of his beer, processing this revelation. So you're wealthy, yes, Wendy confirmed. But that doesn't define me any more than being a plumber defines you. I'm still just Ellie's mom, trying to give her a normal childhood despite abnormal circumstances. Her sincerity was unmistakable, and Oliver found his initial shock giving way to understanding. That explains the disguise at the library. I value my privacy, she admitted, especially with Ellie. After her father made it clear he was more interested in my money than in being a parent, I've been cautious about who we let into our lives. Oliver nodded slowly. I can understand that. Though I have to say, if you're looking for normal, you might have picked the wrong plumber. Lily's convinced you're an undercover princess, and this house isn't exactly disproving her theory. Wendy laughed, the tension breaking. Is that why she keeps curtsying to me? Probably, Oliver grinned. I tried to tell her otherwise, but kids have their own ideas. Well, princess or not, dinner's ready, Wendy said, reaching for plates from a cabinet. Would you mind calling the girls? As they settled around the dining table, which could have comfortably seated 12, but was set intimately at one end for the 4 of them, Oliver watched Wendy helping Ellie with her sippy cup and cutting Lily's lasagna into manageable bites. There was nothing artificial about her warmth or her obvious joy in motherhood, regardless of her bank account. The evening passed pleasantly, with dinner followed by ice cream sundaes that the girls helped assemble, and then a movie in a home theater that made Oliver's 32-inch TV seem like a postage stamp. By the time Ellie was nodding off and Lily was struggling to keep her eyes open, it felt like they'd known each other for years rather than days. I should get Lily home to bed, Oliver said reluctantly as the movie credits rolled. Thank you for tonight. The food was incredible. Thank you for coming, Wendy replied, walking them to the door with a sleeping Ellie on her shoulder. And for not making a big deal about, the princess thing, Oliver teased gently but then grew serious. Your bank account doesn't change who you are, Wendy. And who you are is pretty great from what I can tell. In the soft light of the foyer, Wendy's eyes shone with something that might have been unshed tears. That means more than you know. On impulse, Oliver leaned in and kissed her cheek, a gentle gesture that nonetheless sent his heart racing. See you soon. Definitely, she whispered. The next few weeks saw Oliver and Wendy's lives becoming increasingly intertwined. There were more park dates, movie nights, and even a Saturday when Wendy brought Ellie to watch Lily's soccer game, cheering louder than anyone when Lily scored her first goal. Oliver learned that, despite her wealth, Wendy worked incredibly hard, often taking video calls late into the night with international clients after Ellie was asleep. She valued her privacy fiercely and had moved to Columbus specifically to escape the spotlight of Silicon Valley, where her success had made normal life impossible. Wendy, in turn, discovered that Oliver's plumbing business was more successful than he let on. He had 3 employees and a solid reputation that kept his schedule full, but that years of supporting his late wife through cancer treatments, before Lily was born, had left him with medical debts he was still paying off. They were an unlikely pair, the tech billionaire and the blue-collar plumber, but in the ways that mattered, they were remarkably well matched. Both were devoted parents who put their children first. Both valued honesty, hard work, and simple pleasures. and both had experienced loss that made them appreciate second chances. On a crisp autumn evening 6 weeks after they'd met, Oliver invited Wendy and Ellie to join them for a backyard campfire at his modest but well-kept home. He'd spent the entire day preparing, mowing the small lawn, setting up his fire pit, and even stringing lights in the old oak tree that dominated the yard. "This is magical," Wendy said as darkness fell and the lights twinkled above them. The girls were roasting marshmallows under Oliver's careful supervision, Lily solemnly teaching Ellie the proper technique. "It's nothing compared to your house," Oliver said, still occasionally self-conscious about the contrast in their lifestyles. Wendy took his hand, threading her fingers through his. "This feels more like home than my house ever has. You've made something real here, Oliver." He looked at her in the firelight, her face soft and open, and knew he was falling in love. "Wendy, I need to be honest about something." "What is it?" she asked, concern flickering across her features. "When I first found out who you really were, I worried that there was too much distance between our worlds," he admitted. "I'm never going to be the kind of guy who fits in at charity galas or board meetings." "I don't want you to be that guy," Wendy said firmly. "I've dated that guy. He wore the right clothes and said the right things and couldn't care less about what actually mattered to me." "And what matters to you?" Oliver asked, his thumb tracing circles on her palm. "This," she said simply, gesturing to the girls giggling together to the humble backyard transformed by care and creativity. "Connection, authenticity, the way you look at me and see Wendy, not the Jensen Tech CEO." Oliver's heart swelled. "I'm pretty crazy about Wendy. The CEO is just a bonus." She laughed, leaning in until their foreheads touched. "I'm falling in love with you, Oliver Grady, money and all its complications aside." "Good," he whispered, "because I'm already there." Their first kiss tasted of chocolate and marshmallows, sweet and perfect beside the flickering fire. "Does this mean you're going to be my new daddy?" Ellie asked suddenly, making them both jump and turn to find the girls watching them with identical expressions of interest. "Ellie," Wendy gasped, embarrassed. "And are you going to be my new mommy?" Lily added pragmatically. "Because my friend Zoe has a stepmom and a stepdad, and she gets 2 birthdays every year." Oliver cleared his throat. "Girls, we're just getting to know each other better. These things take time." "But you do love each other," Lily pressed, with the directness only a child can manage. "I can tell because you look at each other like people in the movies." Wendy's laughter broke the awkward moment. "You're very observant, Lily, and yes, I care about your dad very much." "And I care about your mom," Oliver told Ellie, who beamed up at him. "But becoming a family is a big step." "We need to be patient." "I'm not very good at patient," Ellie announced with the honesty of a 2-year-old. "Me neither," Lily agreed, high-fiving her little friend. As the children returned to their marshmallows, Oliver and Wendy exchanged a look of shared amusement, and something deeper, a recognition that whatever path they were on, their daughters were already several steps ahead. 1 year later, the limestone steps of the Columbus Public Library were decorated with flowers and ribbons. At the top, Oliver stood in a suit that still felt slightly strange but fit him perfectly. Beside him, Lily bounced on her toes in a lavender dress, clutching a small basket of flower petals. "Remember to walk slowly," Oliver reminded her gently. "I know, Dad," Lily said with the exaggerated patience of a now 7-year-old. "Ellie and I practiced 100 times." At the bottom of the steps, a car pulled up and Oliver's breath caught as Wendy emerged in a simple white dress, her hair adorned with tiny flowers. In her arms, Ellie wore a matching dress and an enormous smile. "Ready?" Oliver's best friend and fellow plumber Marcus asked from beside him. "More than ready," Oliver replied, his eyes never leaving Wendy as she began to climb the steps toward him, Ellie on her hip. The ceremony was small, just family and close friends, but perfect. As they exchanged vows at the spot where they'd first met, Oliver couldn't help but marvel at the journey that had brought them here. "I never expected to find love again," he said, holding Wendy's hands in his. "Especially not with a disguised millionaire." The guests chuckled, familiar with their unusual meeting story. "But you showed me that the most valuable things can't be measured in dollars." Trust, laughter, the family were building together. Wendy's eyes shimmered with tears. When you carried Ellie's stroller up these steps, you had no idea who I was, and that was the greatest gift anyone has given me in years. You've taught me that home isn't about square footage or security systems, it's about the people who fill your life with purpose and joy. As they sealed their vows with a kiss, Lily and Ellie threw flower petals with enthusiastic abandon, showering the newly formed family in a rain of color. Later, at the reception in the garden behind Wendy's house, their house now, Oliver pulled his new wife away from the celebrations for a moment of quiet. "Happy?" he asked, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "Deliriously," she confirmed, leaning into his embrace. "You know, the foundation approved the plans for the accessibility renovations at the library. No more struggling with strollers on those steps. Seems only right," Oliver said with a smile, "though I have to admit I'm a little sentimental about those stairs." "Me too," Wendy agreed. "That's why I had a miniature replica made for the cake topper." Oliver laughed, twirling her in a slow circle. "Only you would think of that." "Only me," she echoed, rising on tiptoes to kiss him again. "Your very own undercover princess." "The best kind," he murmured against her lips, as the sound of their daughter's laughter floated through the evening air, the perfect soundtrack to their unlikely but perfect love story.